Well, welcome everybody. It is a pleasure to welcome you again to MI Colloquium. My name is Connie Pascal, and we are today is our annual Beta Phi Mu guest lecture, so we're excited to get things rolling. I'd like to start out by, again, reminding everyone that we do have a little bit of an agenda. We're going to have welcome and inductions, and then our guest speaker is going to take the stage. We'll have a lot of time for audience Q&A and some closing remarks, and then we'll stick around for a few minutes to see if anyone wants to stay and do that. Meeting rules, again, video will be of this presentation will be available in about a week on the MI playlist. I'm sorry, the MI Colloquia playlist on the RUCOM Info YouTube channel. Audience members, you will be muted throughout the presentation. And again, please go ahead and put your questions in the chat, but we are saving time for a lot of discussion. So the next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to go ahead and stop my share and introduce to you Dr. Marie Radford, who is our department chair, and she's going to take it away from here. Marie?
Okay, thank you very much, Connie, and thank you as always for being our gracious host of our MI Colloquia. Good evening, everyone. It's my really great pleasure to welcome you to our fall Beta Phi Mu Omicron chapter speaker series, which is also a MI Colloquium. I'd like to thank our co-sponsors, the SC&I, the SCI Alumni Association, the New Jersey Center for the Book, the LAS department, of course, and the Rutgers University Libraries. So I'm not going to take too much time here because we have a really full agenda, but I'd like to introduce next Katrina Zwa, who's cataloging and metadata librarian for Somerset County Library System of New Jersey, and one of our co-presidents of Beta Phi Mu. Katrina?
Thank you, Marie. Good evening. I guess I don't need to really introduce myself because Marie did that for me. But I am one of the co-presidents for Beta Phi Mu Omicron chapter. That's the Rutgers chapter. And before we jump into tonight's activities, I just wanted to tell you a little about Beta Phi Mu. It's an international honor society for library and information science and information technology. For information technology. It was founded by a group of librarians and library educators. The society's express purpose is to recognize and encourage superior academic achievement among library and information studies students. Our chapter was started in 1970 by two PhD students, one of whom, Bill Summers, went on to become the dean of the library school at Florida State University and executive director of Beta Phi Mu. To be invited to be part of Beta Phi Mu, students must meet these requirements. A cumulative grade point average of 3.75 or better, placement in 25% of the upper 25% of the class, and recommendation of by a faculty member. And here's where the motto is, I'm gonna murder the Latin on this one probably, is Alice in serviendo consumer. And again, apologies for the bad Latin. Basically, that means consumed in the service of others. And that's very accurate with the, at least on the library side of things, is, you know, the big service portion to the library profession. I'm gonna turn it over to Chelsea Barrett, who is the business librarian at Seton Hall University, and she's going to introduce tonight's speaker.
Thank you so much, Katrina. I am honored and privileged to present and welcome our esteemed guest for tonight. Mr. Jason Broughton is a very well-rounded individual with a master's degree in library and information science from the University of South Carolina, a master's degree in public administration from the University of South Florida, and a bachelor's degree in biology from Florida A&M University. As of September 2021, Mr. Broughton serves as the Director of the National Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled, NLS, where he is responsible for the oversight and administration of the NLS program of the Library of Congress, including the expansion of online and digital delivery of program services. But his journey did not start there. In 2019, Mr. Broughton became the first African-American to serve as the Vermont State Librarian, where he engaged in strategic planning for the Department of Libraries and established a long-term vision for the state library. He additionally held other roles in South Carolina and Georgia, using prior training to focus on many issues such as workforce development and public outreach engagement. We are so grateful to have a speaker with us today devoted to making effective change in our field and in our world. So without further ado, please welcome Mr. Jason Broughton.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. And I see the nods going on. Again, thank you to the Dean, Maria, and also to Rutgers. And I definitely want to thank also Katrina and Chelsea, who reached out to me while I was in Vermont. And I was like, what is this sitting in my inbox? I'm not sure what this is. And so I said yes to that. And of course, connecting with Connie to kind of give me some background on what this could be. And I hope to live up to your expectations tonight. If I do this right, I will treat myself to some really good French fries at the end of this. So we will see what that looks like for that. All right, give me a moment. I am going to share the screen, and that's going to allow me to get to my presentation. And I'm going to assume everybody can see that because I think it went off without a hitch. And again, my name is Jason Broughton, and I am the Director of the National Library Service at the Library of Congress. Today, my real goal, and I'm going to try to do this very, very well if I can, will be to talk about my life, which I find is just normal or standard, but a lot of people have told me that it is actually quite unique. It's very different. It comes in a variety of different caveats that come to it, and they are always kind of intrigued. Usually I end up talking about my life story at bars. So maybe that in the future will be something that we can actually all get together and do once we get out of the pandemic. But the topic today will be around different types of diversity. And I think I'll be using myself as this example. And I hope that it gives you a lot of inspiration to think outside the box, because we tend to sometimes put limitations on ourselves where the world does not even sometimes care. So let's get started. I'll be talking about my lived experience through a variety of different lenses that I think will create some unique dialogue on how I ended up at the Library of Congress. I too did not expect to end up at the Library of Congress, but here I am, and I am pleased to have done so. If this opportunity, however, did not appear, I would be extremely comfortable back in Vermont right now, enjoying probably the winter weather that's about to set in, making sure my snow tires are up to date. So within that, what is lived experience? And looking at that, I just wanted to kind of give people why this is important, because it's a truth to that individual. And sometimes it's a truth to other people who also have similar experiences and can acknowledge it. It just brings a different facet to how one thinks and how they move about the world. So with that, if you are working for a specific purpose, you get to take those experiences with you, not only your professional life, but also your personal life. And from that, I have done so because I have been allowed the opportunity to go through a variety of unique and challenging circumstances, some great, some good, some horrible, some bad. So when people talk about lived experiences, one of the simplest ways you can do it is to just say that a person lived through something. Each of you in this room, as you are listening to me talk about this, probably is living through something. Sometimes it's very challenging. Sometimes we can't see a way out of it. And in other times, we look at it and we say, okay, how do I navigate through this? Because sometimes you can't go over it. Sometimes you can't go around it or under it. You actually have to go through that experience. One of the things I would try to tell people when that occurs, however, is Try to enjoy the journey, no matter what that is. One of the unique things that I've done in my life is to make sure that I understand my own emotions, which means I actually try to say, ooh, so that's what this actually feels like when they say what this term is. Oh, what an interesting feeling. And that can be good, bad, or sad. The Oxford Dictionary, of course, defines it more broadly: personal knowledge about the world gained through direct firsthand involvement in everyday events rather than through representations constructed by other people who want to tell you what you should feel as opposed to how you actually are feeling. And last but not least, it basically is a way to make sure that we understand the challenges that come before us. So you might keep hearing me say challenges because I went through quite a lot. And from that, I learned to put those lived experiences to use. And it has, I think, gotten me where I am now, in addition to who I see myself as at the current time, which is Jason Broughton. By Frank Schaeffer. Shared experiences are at the heart of what makes life worth living. So know that as I talk to you, I will talk about personal and professional. And I would say I love and enjoy my life. I love what I've actually been able to do. I love what I've actually gone through. And I actually savor getting up in the morning. I'm probably one of the very few people that you would meet who actually like to get up and go to work, because I always want to find out, what am I going to get into here in DC. I think a lot of my staff think that I am insane because they're like, you ride the metro into work every day? Yes. And they're like, why? And I said, because it's interesting. Every day is different. I get to sit, observe, and watch the world around me. When you pay attention, that's another theme. You begin to see interesting patterns sometimes, or you find the quirkiness in life, which when things go awry, my staff usually will tell you, they can hear me say, well, this is life. That just happens. It just is. You can say, but that never does. Nope, this is life. These things happen. And we take it for what it is. So starting out, I will go into three phases: my educational, my personal, and then a mixture of things together. So starting with educational. Now, this is not about me talking about accolades or the degrees that I have, but it's to show you the context for what these things represented for me as I moved about my educational experience. First and foremost, I'm an undergraduate in biology. I have a very, very curious mind. Very early on, my parents realized that I liked science. I, of course, being in the South, had a lot of questions about religion, but that's a different topic altogether. And so my parents were like, as long as you're in this household, young man, you and your brother, you will be going to church every day, basically at our whim, and you will enjoy it. And so I did. And that has also a unique stance of my upbringing as well, with some virtues and a whole host. But in loving science, I like to understand protocols, processes, systems, how things came to be, what it might look like over time. I also have a minor in chemistry, so I do like to play with chemicals. Those chemicals now are very, very minute, and they appear in the form of putting things together to make a dessert or a dish or cooking. No longer am I playing with a variety of things that could be dangerous, but of course, I do look at the world in a very unique way and looking at what those combinations of things create. What will they end up being when you can have them merged together? Followed by, I, in a sense, became a teacher, and I'll get into the work life. But the second item that I noticed when I was a teacher was I kind of saw that I wanted to really help change the face of education, particularly public education. I went through the public education system in South Carolina at a very unique time. And within that, I believe I had a really, really wonderful public educational experience. I know a lot of people can look back at their items and say, no, that was not my case. But I had wonderful Black, white, and Hispanic teachers in the 70s and 80s who really just said, we are here to make you literate. We have kind of moved away from that in education a bit. That's again a different topic, because that's what they told us. We're here to educate you and make you literate. They did not say we are educating you to get a job. That probably started in the late 80s and the 90s. I wish we would go back to that, saying a more educated society. And in looking at that, I wanted to really see if I could find my little way of helping education help all people of all levels. And within that, someone said, well, if you don't want to be a principal, maybe you might want to think about policy and what it looks like to even oversee programs and different items. And so I understood maybe public administration would be the way to go, and looking at what it means to kind of help in this unique way on a variety of levels, whether it be curriculum writing, whether it be looking at special education, which is the range, of course, and looking at what could it be when you create policy that impacts people in a very unique way, for good and unfortunately for bad. That degree, however, really opened my eyes into a very unique way of the protocols of how you look at bureaucracy. For public administration, it's the, of course, public basically version of the MBA. And within that, you look at processes when it comes to things all local, city, municipal, county, state, and federal. You look at the bureaucracy, and bureaucracy can have a negative connotation, but in this case, it should not. It's the organizational structure for how we rule our lives, at least in our country. That degree has helped me in a variety of ways, where the library degree helps with the informational side of why I want to do something. The MPA shows me exactly how to construct and carry that out. So it was a very worthy item to obtain. I would highly recommend, which I'll get to a little bit later though, for people who are in library school. I'm not sure how the dean feels about this, but it's very helpful for you to kind of think about the items that I have on the bottom of my screen that we get into when it comes to this, if you are not looking at that, and you'll see why. Um, Left
Jason,
Florida.
real quick before you go in, we can't see your video, and it's perfectly fine for you to keep it off while you're speaking, but it would be fabulous if we could see your face.
That
But
is
that's
interesting. I did not know that that was happening. Give me a moment. Let me see what I can do to appease that. I think sometimes this happens for certain types of screens. Um, and I'm going to do that. I'll come back to it in a second. And that's not what I want.
I'm so sorry, you're on a roll, but I really, there you go.
I wondered why that.
Well, that was
happened.
popping up. That was me.
Well, perfect. I'm glad that you did that. And these things again happen. And this is, of course, life.
There
and
we
the
go.
principle is
Wonderful.
being able to make sure that one is flexible. So thank you. I'm glad that you consider me handsome enough to be on screen.
Without a
Within that,
doubt.
other people would have other factors. When people dislike me, they usually say, "Well, we'll see about that." That is my nickname. So as we go forward, the library degree I obtained when I had to return home to South Carolina for a very unique circumstance of taking care of my mother. It's just me and my brother, who, in a sense, was unfortunately diagnosed with dementia. But there were some unique items before I actually got that degree that I'll talk about. But it has opened up a variety of pathways to me that I had not necessarily thought about, because I saw myself as an educator as opposed to being a librarian. But it has really, really allowed me to do something in which I think I always truly enjoy, which is one, to learn, number two, to share information, but do it in a very different way where it's a little bit more liberating than education. Education has some restrictions of how you do things. When you are looking at librarianship, the world is your oyster in conveying information. You get to say, well, here's the good and here's the bad. I'm presenting that to you. It's up to you to decide. I can even help you decide, but that again will be your choice, as opposed to in education circles, it's all about pedagogy and when you do things and can be handled. So a very wondrous degree. Additionally, for those who know me very well, if you do, you usually gain about 50 pounds when you come into my circle or orbit of knowing me. I am a trained baker. I only do it now for friends and family and for my staff that I have worked at in each of the places that I have been throughout my life. Within that, some people ask, what are your specialties? Well, it can be anything, but usually breads, cakes, and I like to play with chocolate. But I kind of right now I'm doing some things on savory sweet items for the staff, and looking at Veterans Day. And if we have any veterans on or persons who have family members who are veterans, I kind of hate saying Happy Veterans Day, because the day is also to take stock about what people would do for the country and what we ask them to do for the country at various times. But Thank you for your service, and thank you as a family for also assisting them in having their service if we have any veterans today. But what I did for my staff on yesterday was to thank them because we have some veterans on staff. Yes, in the federal government, there are a lot of people who come from the military and interestingly become librarians. And they also are a very diverse group and are wonderful people to talk to. But we enjoyed a Southern maple syrup bread pudding. Yes, the Southern part was me being Southern, but the maple syrup all came from Vermont, thanks to Bruce Post, who was on this call, him and my former agency secretary. They also enjoyed a very unique tart that I made, a very fruit tart. I call it the Stars and Stripes, just basically strawberries and blueberries. But it was gone within about 3 minutes. So, yes, quite interesting. Last but not least, I have a lot of certificates and things that actually help to get things going the way that I believe helps me and help people like me understand how to get things done. So, for workforce development, I used to be a global career development facilitator. I have not recertified, so I'm not just a career development facilitator. And that kind of helps you with career exploration, helping people navigate a variety of career choices at all different components, anywhere from those who are second career to people who are looking at professional degrees. It gives you an interesting way to kind of ask questions and help them look at their choices. I also have a project management certification. I cannot tell people enough. This is important. If you think that you want to go to be a library director, it is highly important because you're going to need to know how to manage various projects all at the same time, anywhere from building construction to looking at finance items to enterprise systems to IT infrastructure that you might do. You might even say, oh my goodness, we have to redo our user interface and the way that it connects with our catalog. Well, that's going to be an IT project that you're going to have to oversee and also be ethical and financial and fiduciarily in compliance. So you better have a way to be methodical and look at that. I've had a lot of people tell me, like, I'm at the library school. I didn't sign up for that. Well, if you're going into public libraries, you're probably going to need this if you think you're going to be a deputy director, an assistant, or definitely the director themselves. I'm quite sure also in some unique academic institutions, this is very, very helpful to do. So if you think that you are getting this degree to sit around, as all of us who are librarians on this call hear from the public all the time, what a wonderful job. You must love to read. Oh my goodness, you get to read every day. And I tell people, if Dr. Hayden probably caught me reading in my office frequently, which was just for leisure reading, I probably wouldn't have a very good time of it. In fact, I might be written up because I should be doing the work of the Library of Congress to make sure that I am ensuring that taxpayer money is, in a sense, being used effectively to pay my salary. So leisure reading, while nice, yes, I didn't take this job to just read books all the time because sometimes people think that's all we do as librarians. But you know the truth. Continuous improvement, I also have a green belt for Six Sigma, which literally talks about continuous improvement and making sure that you can look at processes, understand them, see if there are roadblocks, and then try to, over time, always do better. And that's the key goal with that. You don't have to get to it fully, but these have been wonderful things that I have been able to obtain through a variety of organizations. And so with that, it shows you the educational experience, which are quite diverse, and looking at how I came to be from a variety of aspects. And you'll see why all the education comes into play. My work experience, as I said, a baker, I like to bring that forward because I like to thank people, particularly my staff, friends, and family. And I bake them treats, my own personal items. I have 120 staff in the building in DC, and then we have other staff scattered throughout parts of the country to some of our service units. And also, we connect with a variety of network libraries across the country and also US territories. But of course, we don't all come together at the same time. But I thank people with that. The science part, as I said, going into Florida and doing a variety of things that allowed me to help a very unique population of people. I did 2 years of middle school and said, I'm gonna be upfront, the hell with that. Oh my God, middle school teachers, God bless them. Ooh, That is a time in our lives. If you remember how you were as a teenager, oh, just think about teaching you during middle school. Really think about that. For me, I was a hellion. So I did 2 years of that because it's all hormones and trying to teach. And at the same time, these young people are trying to find themselves and they're just coming into being. And I realized I needed to teach high school. I needed a little bit more adult nature focus, which was to say, let me now try to educate you before you become the ages of 18, 19, in some cases 20, and go off into the world. Let me at least give you a little bit of guidance. And so for that, I did it for a long time, teaching a variety of subjects from anatomy physiology, advanced placement biology, ecology, environmental science, physical science, and I did a host of things when it came to STEM and STEAM. In fact, as an accolade to this educational institution, in the early 90s, I had the wonderful fortune of taking a group of high school students to Rutgers to compete in the US First Robotics Competition. The 90s feels like it was yesterday, but that was, my God, 30 years ago, basically. I'm so old. Oh my goodness. But it was a very fun time coming to the university and competing in the US Robotics First Competition. We did place. Our team was Blue Thunder from Dixie Hollins High School. I never forget that robot we made. We actually survived. We didn't think we were, but what a fun time. Workforce development. That allowed me to navigate all across South Carolina in very different ways to help people, particularly in the Tri-County area, look at what it meant to go forward when the unfortunate circumstances of career changes, you aren't sure what to do in life, or you are unemployed happens. That led, however, to my being recognized by a librarian in South Carolina who kind of talked about maybe you might want to apply for this job. And I looked at her like she was crazy. And I'll talk about that in a second because I never saw myself as a librarian. But she looked at this and said, "You really are doing this. You just impart so much information. Why don't you consider just at least applying this job?" And I did, and I got the job. And from that, I ended up being the workforce development trainer there. But while working at the South Carolina State Library, I became a librarian. If you didn't know, each state has a state library that handles the federal outlay that comes before them to assist various types of libraries. The biggest group is usually public libraries, but they can also help with academic, in some ways, school media and special libraries as well. From that, I got the degree, but I also wanted to pay my dues. I was talking to directors of all calibers, but I just felt that I had not come through the ranks. I ended up in the state library at such a young age. And when you kind of get there, you're kind of in an established role. You're kind of seen as the go-to person. And I said, I think I should pay my dues. And I left. I did not have to because I enjoyed my time there. Ended up coming in as the deputy director for the Live Public Libraries. And unfortunate circumstances appeared. So within 2 weeks of getting that job, my boss, Christian Cruz, I'll never forget him, wonderful man, sat me down 2 weeks after I was hired and said, the board has asked me to resign. Immediately, I thought I just made the worst mistake in my life. But the chairman of the board came in and asked me a few questions. I was panicking quite a lot because I was like, we've got to find a director, we've got to start doing a search. But I did reach out to the Georgia State Librarian and also the board chair just kept peppering with questions. By the time we had the board meeting the very next night, they said, we are going to be naming Jason Broughton as the interim, and I feel extremely comfortable and confident about doing that. And that was a very unique experience. I survived that situation for 2 years, made a lot of changes, and you'll see why I say I survived. Left that because I also knew some people that I met in Florida and South Carolina who were, in a sense, from Vermont. And from that, a position came open. I had been visiting the state since about 2001 and applied for the assistant state librarian position for library advancement and got that job. Moved to Vermont, had a wonderful time, and sadly, oh, so sadly, 6 months into that job, the state librarian, who I knew very well and considered a wonderful friend and colleague, sat us down and told us he could not stay in his position due to a medical situation. The other assistant state librarian, Tom McMurdo, was with me, but felt that I, coming in as a new person, would be best to kind of help navigate this. And I took up that challenge and was the interim, then the acting And then our agency secretary, Suzanne Young, looked around along with Governor Scott, who I deeply still admire, both of them. And Bruce Post, who's the chair. He might be sitting quietly, but you should know Bruce Post is the chair of the Vermont State Board of Libraries. The three of them needed to confer and looked around and said, "Well, my God, let's just give him the job. He's quite interesting." And we went off to the races in Vermont and had a wonderful time. And yes, became the first African American state librarian for Vermont and was probably the first assistant state librarian for Vermont. It is a very diverse state in unique ways, but it's also becoming more ethnically and racially diverse. And so just know that a wonderful state and it has so much to offer. And then a position came open within the Library of Congress for this. Lots of conversations, reviews, and then they said, yes, we would love to have you. And so here I am. Life experience. Why did I actually become a librarian? And looking at this, I was working early on as a workforce person in the library, just enjoying myself. Meeting a wonderful woman, though, the librarian that I said in Charleston, asked me to come down. She had heard about me through a lot of people. And when I say heard, you should know I worked with a lot of people. I was going into jails, prisons, residential treatment centers. I went, unfortunately, to group homes for adopted students. Oh, that was just a wonderful time. But you realize on that level, we need to do more as a people. I met such wonderful young people who had no parental context and were aging out of the system. I had no thoughts about what that even looked like. Like, oh my goodness, my parents celebrated when I was going off to school, and you don't have that. How can I help you with this? So I went off to talk about a variety of things to a variety of people from high level. I worked with PhDs and looking at some things in academia because I was dealing with career training and also resume writing and certified. I didn't put that into, I'm a certified resume writer, forgot that. But it allowed me to help people. So she heard this and said, do you mind coming in to my library in Charleston and talking to a variety of different groups, young people, teenagers, um, mature workers, laid off people. And I said, sure. So we set up some things. And over time, we just began to talk quite a lot. And then one day, as I said, she sat me down and she said, I have something to tell you. And I said, oh my goodness. I must have made a mistake. I must have said something publicly that I should not because of the way this is going. And she says, no, Jason, it's not like that. I really think that somebody should have sat you down before you thought about becoming a teacher and say to you, have you ever thought about becoming a librarian? And I remember telling Cynthia Hurd, no, because I don't know any rich librarians, which she immediately shot back, and I don't know any rich school teachers. So I said, touche. And so she gave me a job to look at months later, threw my backpack, and then eventually dug it out, looked at it, and realized I was doing all of it plus more. And so I did apply, and off I went to the South Carolina State Library. I didn't, however, want to become fully a librarian until I went to the Mississippi Library Commission for a program that we were looking to do in South Carolina to replicate for non-degree library staff. At some of these little communities across the country, there are people who are wonderful, but they are never going to be going to library school because the return of investment for them to live back in those communities will never happen to pay off that if they're taking out loans. So what some states do are they have in-house programs that allow non-degree people to be trained just enough to understand what a library is supposed to do, but also to be like an administrator. And we want to replicate that. I had such a wonderful time in Mississippi. Those people were just amazing. Where I immediately came back after that. I'll never forget, it was the week before Thanksgiving. Came back that Sunday night from Mississippi after an enjoyable time. Went to University of South Carolina to graduate school. Told them on Monday morning that I actually would like to apply to go into librarianship, and they were thrilled. And they said, "And you want to start the summer semester?" And I said, "No, I want the spring." And they just were taken aback. They said, well, Thanksgiving is coming. We also will be closing down university for winter break. We also have exams. Mr. Broughton, you only have 2 weeks to do this, in addition to Les recommendation, all the types of things you have to do, the interviewing, getting all of this ready. And you've got to go take either the MAT or the GRE. And I did. But that's a whole nother conversation because it required me to go to the last center that was open in the hinterlands of North Carolina closest to the Virginia border, where I needed to get up on an early Friday morning, well, Saturday, Friday night, Saturday morning, and drive there and be the only person in that testing center and passing it. I only studied for 2 weeks, got it done, but I passed it by 2 points. So you can see I am not as smart as I think, but I still got into graduate school. There you go. Within that, becoming that librarian helped me to understand what librarianship was, but also in a state library, understand South Carolina state government and what it means to do librarianship on a state level to help a variety of people. Other life experiences that are just unique and challenging. As I said, I aided people with barriers in a whole host of ways that let me know what humanity looks like at all levels when you are in a variety of different states, particularly when you get laid off or you're thinking about a career decision that ultimately you might need to take out a loan. What is available? That isn't just about talking about, well, take out the loan. It's let's look at anything and every way that we can talk about money. What does it look like to pay this back? What is this investment that you'd like to do? That helped me really understand what everyday common people go through when they're looking at educational choices. And for that, I'm always grateful. Caring with a parent with dementia. If you've never done that, oh my goodness, it really changes you in a way that you sometimes thought who you were. You find that you really were never that person at all. For that experience, I'm forever humbled to be able to graciously have taken care of my mother, even though I did not, unfortunately, have any, I would say, not negative days, but positive ways in which she really remembered me after a certain point. She kind of knew I was important, but didn't know exactly who I was. And that's an interesting thing when your mother is sitting there with you, when you might be taking her to a doctor's office or driving with her in her car, and all of a sudden your mother starts saying, "Do you know Jason?" I remember being shocked, and I said, "Well, yes, I do." And she says, he just doesn't call. Children do this to their parents. They don't call their mother." And I remember sitting there saying, "Oh, I wanted to laugh." She did ask, "What's so funny?" I said, "Well, I think he understands that." She said, "Are you sure you don't know him? Because he's doing quite a lot of stuff. I'm proud of him, but I just wish he'd call me. He just does not call me." And here I was in the car with her, and there she is complaining about me. Interesting times. Career changes. Baker, science teacher, science enthusiast, teacher, workforce development person, and now librarian. Also going forward, the interim director in Savannah showed me how to deal with city and county government, but also some very unique challenges in looking at some experiences of when I talked about the 2-year haul. The 2-year haul that I did there was a wonderful time, dedicated staff. We did a lot of important, impactful changes that need to occur. Now, you might say, why? My name is now associated at something I played up publicly, in which not many people get to do this. One, your director tells you they're leaving within 2 weeks after you get the job in 2 weeks, followed by you begin to hear the staff talk about problems. And the staffing problems, because the system was so big, 18 branches, $20 million budget, wonderful place. Savannah is a gem. And you hear, well, there is harassment. Oh, well, that's a liability. That's legal through one lens. And let's just say from a human, let's not have that until they said, well, what do you want to do with this, Mr. Director? Suppose we tell you that the HR department is the harasser. What do you do with that? How many of you would handle that where you realize the HR department is causing the harassment? Fun times. Followed by, what do you do if the HR person starts to tell you, yes, they're sorry for things, but did you know that the finance director is embezzling $300,000? Fun times, fun times, fun times. So, yes, I had financial impropriety that was going on along with some HR issues, and that led to me having to step up, gain a lot of experience on how to look at things through a variety of lenses, in addition to being ethical and fiduciary standpoints. Being Vermont's first African American state librarian, and then understanding Vermont, which I still am learning, was a wonderful experience because the state just offers so much to people in a variety of ways. This is not to say it doesn't have some of its problems that they are trying to discuss when it comes to diversity, but it allowed me to see a variety of things in ways that people don't always get to see. Vermont is seen by a certain lens by the country, but when you get on the ground, it's a total different lens, along with it has some parts that are just like any other place in the country. There is a ruleness there where some people are having a hard time in Vermont. And if you've ever understood that, then you will know what it means to live in rural living and not have many options. Because there are some parts of Vermont that are hard scrabble. And guess what? There are little tiny libraries there that I got to go to. And I got to meet with those hard scrabble people who told me how important the library was to them, in addition to telling me how important I was doing the work to help the libraries remain in Vermont. That sometimes made me just feel just uplifted but heartbroken at the same time because you want to do more. And last but not least, here I am now as director of NLS. That has opened up a wonderful opportunity, which has shown me how to navigate a different skill set when we're looking at vision impaired, print disabled, and the disabled. So, of course, a little play here, recognition. Having your moment in the sun isn't always a good thing. As I said, some of my journey got me a lot of publicity and fame, but it was not always for good things. It was kind of hard in some cases. Um, Being a first can be very, very hard. You're considered a trailblazer, but people don't always know what you're going through, how hard the challenges are, the things that you have to go through, the tug of war. In addition, the educational recognition. Yes, getting lots of education is very helpful. The key goal to remember is to put it to good use, know what you need to do with that and how to do it. The library recognition, oh my goodness, I did quite a lot where ALA did some things for me, and through their admission, it would be just me. But I said, no, it was you people recognizing me. So I'm an ALA Spectrum Scholar, ALA Emerging Leader, Library Journal called me a Mover and Shaker. And again, all wonderful platitudes, but I see myself as nothing special. Workforce and business services accolades, lots of things in helping people obtain jobs and actually calling you personally to tell you that they got a job, all the way to help me open up my own business, which I also help people do because I have business and small business resources for entrepreneurship. Workplace recognition. When you do it right, people start telling you, I want to leave this library over here and I want to work for you. That's a wonderful workplace recognition, in addition to my own staff telling me how much I meant to them or how much I have helped navigate them through some very rocky times, particularly in Vermont through the pandemic. And last but not least, the community in a unique way telling you as a person, and this could be my small rural community in South Carolina known as Cross, all the way up to parts of Charleston, Myrtle Beach, place in North Carolina, Georgia, parts of Vermont, letting me know they really admired and they liked me, not for the position, but Jason Broughton, this person who has come into their lives wonderfully to have relationships and conversation and to show them that, yes, I'm a librarian and I love it. And here's what you do. In addition to that, humanity telling you that you're a wonderful son. Of course, I don't know. There are times when I look back about dealing with dementia where you just wonder, could there have been more? But it worked out in the end. It was a wonderful time, and I got to share quite a lot of things, and people let you know that. So, what does this entire conversation mean as we start to get into some questions? Well, it means you need to pay attention. Pay attention for every single opportunity, every challenge, every adversity that comes your way. Pay attention to it. Don't look away, look it dead in the face. When it comes to looking at diversity, I'm not sure how many people would have picked me coming from where I did educationally, academically, going to an HBCU starting out first, as opposed to some of the other universities, in addition to growing up rural. That also has a key factor in how I think. So you always want to look around. And I'll come back to this video in just a second, and I'll just speed through because it's only a minute, but I want you to pay attention to this one. Live in the moment. Mindfulness really matters. I used to just kind of quickly try to go through things when I was younger. And now as I age, it's like, no, sit in that meeting, even though you know that meeting could have been an email. Yes, sometimes we have meetings to have meetings. But if I'm in that meeting, I still pay attention to everything, not just what's being said. And you might say, well, why is that the case? In my new role, I wonderfully have met a lot of people who are vision impaired. And one of the things that they told me early on was this: we are different from sighted people, which we knew. And I said, well, I understand. They said, no, here's what you need to pay attention to. When your senses are changed, your other senses, in a sense, are utilized differently. So when you are talking to people, particularly who are vision impaired, remember this: they are really listening to what you say and what you don't say and how you say it. and if you're standing close to them, or if you're far away. So that meant a whole nother caliber that I had not paid attention to now needed to be thought through differently. Not to hide, but to say, how can I be more authentic now, since I now understand what you are saying? Be the person that engages every situation. Step into it because you might be the best thing for it, even though you are terrified. Do it and be scared. I did that quite frequently. Bruce Bose could tell you that. You just step into a lot of things, even though you're terrified. You don't know how it's going to end, but you might be the best thing for it. And that takes a lot of courage. People say, well, my God, you sound brave. You can only be brave, guess what? When you're scared. Without being scared, you don't have bravery. You have arrogance if you are doing it that way. Force yourself to be you. Deep down, we all know who we are. We're not talking about the cynical, the sarcastic, the pessimistic sides of us. The actual authentic where you're like, here's what I really enjoy. Let that side come out. Sometimes we construct our lives by other people's views. Don't let that be you. Look for better opportunities to grow as a person. I've had a wonderful career where people have paid for me to actually get education, and I appreciate that. And I hope to, in a sense, provide that back, not only to the US, but to the world, to humanity. And so everything is a learning opportunity. Biases and assumptions, when you put yourself out there, you go to different things like I have, going to different places, they begin to recede. I had a viewpoint of the North coming from the South. That got upended. People in the North had a viewpoint about the South until they met me. That got upended. Having a African-American person as a first got upended. So just know, even if you see yourself as not unique or average, I guarantee you in some of the roles, you would be shocked. In Vermont, the street that I lived on when I got there, I stayed in a little place called Barry. My neighbors welcomed me wonderfully. And guess what? They told me as a very unique thing that made me laugh, but it was true, because in some parts of this country, this can still happen. I moved in and was welcomed. Oh my goodness, this wonderful group of people. And they said, you don't know this, but you just integrated the neighborhood. I had some friends who were appalled, and I said, no, that's amazing, because that meant in this country, there are places where no person of ethnicity other than white or race has lived on the street. That's not a negative thing. That just meant no one has actually moved there to do that. And there are places in this country that still have that. You'll be surprised. The thing that I try to always go back to is when some people were appalled was to say, did you not hear me when I said my neighbors welcomed me to the community? Did you not hear that? Going through, again, challenges made me to realize I was not as empathetic or humble as I really was. But life offers you a course correction, and sometimes that's needed. I would say it helped me to be a much better person and put me in a much different place. And I'm now, I think I'm becoming the person that I always really wanted to be. And again, dementia did that for me in making sure that I understood what one could do to care for somebody going through that, at least for me and my brother. Last but not least, without lived experience, not only can we not understand what a person has been through because we're making judgments, we simply cannot judge them by the same standards that we judge ourselves because they're coming at it from different places. And last but not least, Connie, if you don't mind playing the video, this goes into paying attention. I think you'll find it amusing. I'm going to stop, I think, sharing my screen and let you go ahead and play the video.
Oh, let's see. I'm having trouble finding the video. Sorry.
Oh, not a problem. It's just a minute. If everybody can hang on to that.
There we go.
This test.
Oh, it's not sharing one.
How many passes does the team in
Can you
white
see
make?
it?
Nope.
Go!
Sorry. Let me see. Let me see. Won't let
I mean,
me.
we saw it, but it wasn't the full screen.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Start it over.
This is an awareness test. How many passes
All right,
does
everybody,
the
pay
team in
attention.
white make?
Please pay attention.
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
If you look in the middle, you can see the bear coming through the center of the screen. And again, I thank the Transportation Board in London for that very unique video that basically, in a sense, shows you that if you're not really looking for it, you actually will never see it. And in the realm of diversity, in a variety of ways, people think they're looking for what they actually want, but they are sometimes always going to not see it because they really aren't looking for that exact thing. And last but not least, I will end with words from Maya Angelou. Never make someone a priority when all you are to them is an option. So know what your pecking order is when people reach out to you. And it's not a problem if they consider you an option. My thing is always just know that I don't have to make you my priority. So just make sure we always are on that. That helps a lot in my experiences when it comes to working in state government, all the way through personal accountability. I try to live this one every day. My mission in life is not merely to survive, but to thrive and to do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and a little bit of style. I do live this every day. And last but not least, for all the students in this room and for some of you professors too, nothing will work unless you do. When she said that to a graduating class of students, that kind of like brought the house down. So just remember that in life, it will never work until you start working and put it forward. No one else can do it but you. Thank you. And I will now open questions.
Well, thank you so very, very much, Jason. I don't know even where to go. Inspired is just like the beginning. Your life history is interesting to say the least. So we do have some questions. Eddie, would you like to take yourself off mute and ask your question? And then we'll go to Chelsea.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I was just wondering if you experienced any kind of culture shock going from the South to New England.
Oh, I would say no. Vermonters screamed when I would say the following comment. Oh my goodness, you people are just like the South. No, we're not. We are not the South. Yes, they were in quite a lot of ways. The positive ways and some of the negatives, but not so much the culture. Acclimating to different things were unique. Vermont in itself is its own microcosm. I would say it opened me up to a very unique way of living, one that I had not seen since I grew up as a child in South Carolina with this. But I would definitely say for me, Vermont afforded a certain sense of liberty and an old-fashioned way of viewing freedom. They do things in Vermont that people, they just, I wish I could do this. You can get up in the morning. For me, for example, I was able to get up in the morning and walk to work. Walking to work in Vermont is quite unique, where you know all your neighbors, you know the postal person, you can actually walk into the store, they know you, people down the street can give you fresh milk, your neighbors grow crops for you, a total different way of living.
Great. So Chelsea, your question, please.
Sure, it's kind of long, I'm sorry. But I recall when you were speaking, you talked about walking away from your state librarian job, even though you enjoyed it. So do you have any advice for librarians, whether they're new librarians or, people who have been in the field for a long time? Do you have any advice for them on when they should move on to new opportunities, whether they should stay? Like, do you have anything to impart onto them?
Oh my goodness. Number one, don't stay at a job that you hate. Life is too short for that. I'm quite sure some of the professors, dear Dean Marie, might be resigning in the next 48 hours. But never stay at a job that you do not like, because life is too short. There's things that you can do differently, and there is a life to enjoy. As you are in the profession, I wouldn't say so much about needing to leave. If you, for example, take what I try to tell my staff, particularly in Vermont and now definitely NLS, is the following. This hopefully will answer your question. I don't actually believe in work-life balance. Some people probably are terrified of that. Here's what I believe in, particularly after going to Paris. Oh my goodness. You actually want to have the life that you desire in a way in which you incorporate work into that life to live the life you want to live. So if you don't want to work 9 to 5, you actually want to find a job that allows you to do that so you can have the life you want to enjoy. And so within that, if you enjoy your job, and when I say that, there are people at the library I've met, particularly in South Carolina, we had an employee who'd been there for 43 years, same job, enjoyed it. Here at the Library of Congress, oh my goodness, we have had people for 20, 25. My deputy has been there for 27 years. There are people been there for 43 and even 50 years. So it's about, do you enjoy your job? It's not about needing to move. In my case, it's a mixture of, well, how can I now help more people, particularly when this is a job in which you are kind of asked to serve, because I serve at the pleasure of a variety of people, and I can be asked out of the job as well. So just know that that comes with its own price. But I would say, if you see that you can do more, not good, but benefit a variety of people, and also have a little bit of money to survive. Don't be, I'm gonna be upfront. I love Mother Teresa, but don't be a Mother Teresa. You can't be going for broke or going for poor. You need to survive too with some enjoyment. So that means you need to get paid at the same time, or have a certain standard of living that you want. You need to then say, then this is worth it. I will make that jump. But if you enjoy your job, you should not ever have to move. Do it where you want to do something for people and also for yourself. And it will always work out. I had a wonderful department chair, Jeannie Dyer, who said, no matter what was going on, wonderfully said, Jason, it'll all come out in the wash. And I was like, but Jeannie, Jason, it'll all come out in the wash.
Well, Jason, thank you so much. At this point in time, I'm going to throw it back to Marie Radford to close us out. And then we will, if you're okay with this, Jason, we'll stay on for a few minutes after we close out the official part of our colloquium for some extra questions. So Marie?
Yeah. So I am just very inspired by your talk to us tonight, Jason. I actually, when I saw the title of your talk, I knew immediately that this was going to be a memorable presentation. Just the way that you phrased how you would wanted to talk about your journey through life. And I think it's very inspirational for all of us. As we do get older, I'm in the, older set myself, these things that we reflect on and what you were talking about being intentional, being mindful, being fully present for whatever it is, especially for the people we love and for our students and for the people around us. We have a great passion at Rutgers for the library profession. I myself was 19 years a professional librarian. And,
And a middle school teacher.
K through 8, 4 years, high school 4 years, and academic library 11 years. So I am younger than I look. But anyway, I also, Jason, I just want to say too, your sense of humor. I want to work for you because I want some of that cake.
There's that, yeah.
I don't bake, so I always love that stuff. And I think I just also want to say that, it's a really great reflection that you were saying, if you don't love your job, leave it. I tell students that too. If they're really struggling, and especially if they're in a toxic, some libraries are really very toxic environments. And I always say to them, get your CV in shape, get out, because many times it won't change. They'll outlive you, so then you have to take that and move. But one of the things that I've loved my whole life of career and educator is that we love learning. We love to grow. We're always looking for that next thing that we're going to learn. And tonight, Jason, I learned a lot from you. And part of my job is meeting and hearing such wonderful speakers as yourself, and really being so excited that you're at the Library of Congress and at the top of our profession. Thank you, Jason.
Well, thank you. And yes, I'd be happy to sit and even do a culinary class if you'd like, because we can talk about librarianship and
Whoa.
cooking. Oh my goodness, there's tons of stuff.
I would love to.
Yeah, well, with that, I'm going to again close out our official program for tonight. So thank you so much, MI Colloquium students and BPM members and faculty and staff. It was really great to see you. There will be a video of this put on the MI Colloquial playlist in about a few days or so. You can revisit these inspiring words. And again, once again, thank you, Jason, and thank you to Beta Mu for picking such an incredible speaker. So with that, I'll say good night, and we'll stick around here for a few minutes if anybody else wants to talk.
Perfect.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Thank you, Jason.
Bye.
So if anyone has questions, go
So
ahead and
moved.
take yourself off mute and go ahead and ask them.
Well, hi, this is Bruce up in Vermont. I just have to say hi to Jason.
Oh, Bruce Post from Vermont.
Yeah, I'm chair of the State Library Board.
Oh, welcome to our colloquium. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I learned about it. And my wife said to me just about 5 minutes before it started, "Oh, Bruce, Jason's thing is tonight." So I had to download a new Zoom and got on in time. I would just like to say, the difference Jason made up here, and it wasn't always easy. When I think that one of the opening lines of Tale of Two Cities, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. Well, I don't think that Jason ever had the worst of times up here, but he had some challenging times, which we went through together and communicated a lot about. Vermont is a bottom-up library system. We don't have county government. We don't have regional libraries. We have like 180 some odd libraries of variety of sizes. I live in Essex, Vermont, population 21,000. To give you an idea, that's the second largest community in the state. Burlington has got 41, a big metropolis. And we have different capacities, but I think what Jason did here, and I'm sure you felt it listening to the way he spoke and what he recounted, is he added what the French say, that je ne sais quoi, that indefinable element that made people take stock of their libraries and feel excited about them. And our state library department has seen tremendous cuts over the last 10, 12 years. Many state libraries have experienced that as legislators decided, well, we can take money out of the state library. So we went from about 35 positions to now 19, from 4 regional libraries to just the central state library. And Jason came into that situation and certainly taking over from his predecessor, who I loved as well, but who had to leave for medical reasons, and made it happen and made it better. And that's the thing that we miss up here, although I did encourage him to take the position at the Library of Congress, because I believe very strongly that he's going to flourish. And I think it's really important for him to have that experience. And we miss him. And one thing I wanted to say too, because he's with NLS and dealing with folks that have vision challenges. One of our board members is legally blind, and I give him rides to our meetings and everything. And I keep forgetting all the time he's blind. I just say, "Hey, Tom, did you see that? Did you see this?" But we've been interviewing people for Jason's successor. And one of the things he said when we got done, the 3 of us, the Secretary of Administration, me, and he said, "Well, I didn't see one of those people, but I listened and I heard." And he talked about one candidate who said their voice lacked passion. They just, and again, I had to step back and say, "Oh yeah, that's right. Tom can't quote see with his eyes, but he sees many different ways. And I think that's something that all of you as professionals and individuals can learn different ways of seeing other than just your eyes. And I'll keep quiet now, I could go on forever, but he is a magnificent baker. And he would leave gifts on our front steps and call us driving away. He said, I have a gift for you on your front steps. And it was usually delectable. So thank you for letting me weigh in. And it's great to see Jason too.
Oh, well, Bruce, thank you for that. And it's, you know, I don't know if I've ever been on a meeting where a former colleague is called in to heap praise. So you must have been something else, Jason, or maybe it was the baked goods or the
Well,
combo.
thank you.
It's,
I would definitely
it's the
say
multifarious nature, right?
it is. I would definitely say one thing. I mean, Bruce said that I have the je ne sais quoi. So Bruce, when I went to Paris, and of course, you know, I partied in Montreal quite a lot. The French and the Francophobes let me know the following in a very nice way. They said, oh, your French is literate, but it is not functional.
Oh.
so,
Hey,
so there we go.
We have
But yeah.
we have the pleasure of having one of our MI grads, PhD not candidates and PhD. Steph Mikitich has joined us, and she has a question that she'd like to ask you.
Yes, I think I saw that, and I'm ready to take this one on.
Steph is shy, I can tell.
I have an unstable internet connection.
I
but
see. Okay.
yeah, but thank you for your talk. Full disclosure, I'm also at the library. I work in COO. And I'll probably be in touch with you actually, Jason, regarding the staff survey. But I think that, you know, working at NLS, it's, you know, useful to know, you know, if you have any tips or, you know, anything we should do or not do when working with either, you know, coworkers or perhaps patrons that might be blind, visually impaired, or otherwise, you know, physically different. That's all.
My goodness. Oh my goodness. I would say I've had some light experience with this, which I didn't mention back in South Carolina. NLS works through a network of libraries across the country and in US territories to provide a variety of ways to make sure that people have library services. Our vision statement is rather simple. And when you hear it, you're going to say, well, that just makes sense. It's known as that all may read. That's it. And in looking at that, our goal is to make sure that anybody who is vision impaired, reading disabled, learning disabled, and of course, physically disabled, print disabled, actually has the same opportunities that all of us with sighted vision has. Now, we haven't completed that challenge because that's quite a lot of undertaking, but we hope to achieve this. And looking at that stance, there are things that I think we feel we know when we talk about diversity, but we are, to me, just sometimes scratching the surface. For example, I had a wonderful experience when I came on board where my deputy set up something with one of our vendors, because we are pretty much an entity that creates a lot of items. We deal with a lot of platforms. We deal with a lot of accessibility items. We have things such as Braille and a whole host of things that we try to give the patrons. And looking at that, I just did not have this interpretation in the way that I thought. Again, as I said, life opens this thing to you and you say, oh, hi, I'm not the person I thought I was, or this experience. So we're working to bring some new things, hopefully, to our patrons in the future that will make life just wonderful. I can say these kind of openly because they are things that we're trying. So we're looking at smartphones, what that looks like for your own device, even though we provide devices for a variety of people. We also are looking at voice activated items. So yes, you're looking at an Acela or a Siri. What does that look like to be able to do this? Of course, from a librarian standpoint, I think that a lot of people, particularly those who are catalogers or IT professionals as well as IS, know that that's a hard challenge because a voice activated mod means the catalog has to be pristine. In addition to the algorithm will have to connect to the catalog when you say, I would like to read, and it just goes there. You're talking about some interesting operating systems. I say this, the vendor was showing us some things that they were creating for us, and they're ended up going into a new line that we needed to kind of look at. We have two wonderful people on our staff who are totally blind, have always unfortunately been blind. And what I watched as they looked at the different devices that these people had that were prototypes, they hammered it. I mean, just hammered it tooth and nail. Now, you might say, oh, that's just shocking. No, because they know what exactly needs to be in there so that they can get what they need as a person who is vision impaired. When I saw that, it was almost like the reverse of what you might think. Here it was, those of us who were sighted were actually kind of the blind ones because we don't have that vision into what it must be like to be vision impaired and have to feel braille, have to feel different types of textures to kind of get a visual pattern because you have sight. You're just going to say, well, here it is. So, in having those people there, I was so stunned how intricately they felt and touched things to be able to tell us, look, this is what this needs. If you're a person who is blind, we're going to need this. And that was a wonderful experience. So, in looking at that, it's important to, again, have people. Now, when I say this, these aren't people who volunteer their time. They actually are employed by our organization. So think about that from a variety of ways when people say, well, I am a very diverse person. Do you have people who are older in the generation? Yes, they're going to be your institutional knowledge or base sometimes, but they can come in right off, I would say, like their second or third date. What is it like to have young people, very young people as a part of your conversation when it comes to things? People who come from geographic areas that are different. There are a host of things that we sometimes forget when we talk about diversity, when we think of the big things that are just standard. But it needs to be a variety of things. It's beyond gender, race, ethnicity, sex. We're talking about geography, finance, education. A whole host of things need to be brought in. And so when I'm working my user base, which are blind and vision impaired, I would definitely say the key goal is really an easy one. Ask them what they would like. Do not assume you know what they want. They're going to tell you. When Peril came out, I can tell you within 72 hours, I had people already emailing me saying, when are you going to finish this book? It's in the stores. Why don't we have it? And we had to jump to make sure we gave our patrons that, because guess what? Anything we as a sighted person can read, they should have access to as well. And if you don't, they're going to let you know. So I would say, don't assume. They will tell you, oh, we want more of this, or we want more children's books. That way you can begin to do the item. One of the things that I think when I went through library school, I hated this model, and it's still there. I know the dean could weigh in if you want. When it comes to collection development, lots of librarians still use the old standard. Well, we're kind of looking at what got circulated, so I think we need more of that. Why don't you just do a community needs assessment and ask the people what it is they want in the collection? There are people who are terrified of that, I think. But that will help you to say, oh, I think we're spending too much money on books that are sitting on this shelf.
That's
They're
great.
not circulating. What about
So
that?
we're going to finish off with one last question from our PhD student, Shannon, who's actually working on a dissertation that's very close to the topics that we were just discussing. So Shannon, what's your question?
Hi, my question is, when you're talking about your life experience, it wasn't clear, like what part of your life experience do you think helped you in your current role with blind and print disabled individuals? Or how does your past experience, it just seemed like, a lot of people specialize in special populations, but then you made this jump and I wasn't sure if there was anything that attracted you to it or prepared you for that in some way or another.
What was that one
Oh
thing
my
that really, really was the important thing for you in your life experience that helps you in your current job?
Oh my goodness. I would say I'm trying to narrow that down because there were so many things that allowed me to consider this not from just the one angle of helping vision impaired and print disabled. That to me is making sure that everyone has good library services. That's the first thing I think I thought of. And in working with this unique user group, it's an eye-opening experience to think that I understood, I'm gonna be honest, outreach and diversity. that had me reconsidering different types of items. But I'm trying to really think, what was the thing that made this jump? To be honest, it's probably not even the librarianship. That's layered and interwoven in. What it probably is I will go back to really waking up and understanding in this position that I'm an administrator.
Yeah.
And that meant the MPA really comes into view because you need to have, this is how I was told once I got the job by some very important people, very, very high up, and you kind of know some of their names. I'll just be quiet on that, but I had some private conversations to say, we think you'll be a wonderful addition because you have a multitude of experiences, and this is what we need, which meant I don't see myself as the librarian carrying out these things. I see myself as librarian who have administrative talents that say, I'm not bogging myself down in the collection. I have collection development people. My role is to help this organization get money to get you to do what you would like, which is to build that collection. That is where I see my talents best used, because in understanding how to go through the bureaucracy and the nuances, it allows me to make sure that those services are given to those people. And when you have people who understand that, it allows a lot of stress to be relieved off the frontline people to do the work that they love and enjoy. Now, do I enjoy this work? I do, because it's fascinating when people say, you might have to send some money back to Treasury. Oh, no, we're not. We are not sending money back to Treasury. I'm going to find a way to make sure that I get this money retained. I enjoy that because I can't have the people who I'm working with be let down on something that was under my control. If it's out of my control, they got it. But when it's in my control, my goal is to be the administrator that can help get the funding, the appropriations, and carry out the services so that I know the people who really need this service can get it. And I think that's what really was the change. And that person who did that, but not from the administrative side, was really Cynthia Hurd, starting that saying, I think you should be a librarian. And I remember just looking at it and saying, I don't think so. I don't, that probably started it. And so that set me off knowing there are people who need library services, and they should be given them because they are equal to us, just different. That is why I think I took on this job to say, wow, I have seen a lot of populations I've outreach to get some good services, but this is one that I feel I'm serving the country and I'm serving them. And if I can be their spokesperson to say, you want me to speak on behalf of to Congress saying that this is what we need to make sure that you get good library services, I am honored to do that, and I would take up the challenge.
Well, we are honored that you have been able to join us today. So just keep in mind that we have lots of grad students, postdocs, and interns in case you're looking for staff.
I should say that, yes, we actually have a juniors fellows item is being done virtually. And I should send you that link at the Library of Congress. So we have paid internships, but there are tons of things. We even have librarians in residence at the Library of Congress and even in MLS. So just know we have a host of things. And we are also looking for unique people just as we go. So if you have foreign language, oh my goodness, we need those in high demand because we need those specialized skills. You might be lucky to be placed across the world because of your skill.
Well, definitely send me those links and I'll make sure that all gets into the right hands for our MI department because we definitely have that.
And music.
And talent.
If you have anybody with music librarians. Music.
Is Steph still on? Steph, you did the jazz collection at
we need
Newark. You guys, and she's at the Library of Congress, so you guys can just talk. So anyway, it's already 8:25. We've kept you far too long. So thank you everybody for joining us. Again, this will be a video and I will wrap it up with that. So go have your French fries.
I am. I'm going to get some good French fries.
You deserve it. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
And thank you, Jason, for agreeing to join us tonight.
Thank you.
Chelsea, would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye, Jason. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I hope that I've given you guys exactly what you wanted tonight.
Exactly.
And more.
and more.
Oh,
Thank you. Have a
Take
good night,
care.
everybody.
Sure.
Thanks, Marie.
Bye.
Bye.
Great.
All right. Well, with that, ladies, I will bid you also good night. So that was good.
Excellent, excellent, excellent.
Take care.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Thank
Thank
you.